Welcome back to Old School Eats. In our dual cook this weekend, which will be 2 videos because I do these as often as I can, and it's not as often as I should, we're gonna do a new take on pulled pork. Now I say new take, nothing in barbecue is really that new. A lot of people have done it. We're gonna go with extra bark pulled pork on Old School Eats. We'll be right back. As you guys remember from my other pulled pork video, I like using boneless pulled pork. Now, Joey Kim from Knox Ave, if you haven't seen his videos, please do. I think he's got background with Leroy and Lewis. Fantastic videos, fantastic cook. He did a set of pulled pork where he cut the pulled pork into chunks, almost the way we did beef cheeks in the past. Then I watched Hey Grill Hey do and a couple of other folks just sort of lay it out like a butterfly to get more bark. Because one of the things about pulled pork that people love are the barky pieces, because quite often you don't get enough of the flavor in the rest of the pulled pork. In my previous video, I actually trussed my boneless to make sure that everything was tight and cooked the way we want to. This time we're gonna butterfly it out. We're gonna try and get it on there and get a lot more bark and see how it goes. All right, so we've got our boneless pork butt that we got from Costco. This one's about 8 pounds. If you recall, on the underside here, this is where the blade bone was, right here in the middle, and I seasoned in that on our other video. Now, like I said, Joe went ahead and cut this up into chunks, and he didn't confit it, but he practically confit it. He put a bunch of lard in and braised it. I think I'm gonna go a different direction. I'm gonna hybrid between that attempt, which would be a covered, and an actual butterfly. So I'm just gonna go through here with my boning knife and continue to open this up. Don't have to do anything crazy. You want to try and get the same thickness if you can across the pork. Follow its natural seam. So we got a little bit of thinness here, but other than that, we're pretty well laid out. And as you notice, you get all these great craggly area to get seasoning applied. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go get my seasonings. I'll use my standard seasoning combination. We'll get this guy seasoned up, and then we'll talk a little bit about the cooking approach, because it's gonna be pretty straightforward. So we've got our Cosmo lineup. Now, when I did pulled pork before, because there's salt in these other ones, I don't usually use the SPG, but I wanna get some of the pepper in there and a little bit more garlic. So I'm gonna start with the Cosmo Q SPG. Just get a little bit on here. Don't wanna go too heavy. It is a huge piece of meat. Like I said, it's about 8 pounds. So it's not like you're gonna really be able to over season it. I'm gonna go with a little bit of the Killer Honeybee. Get some sugar, sweetness. And again, you know, it's funny, I think Keith Riles does the best job of this, reminding you can always use whatever seasonings you like the best. Everyone's got their favorites. These just happen to be mine for pork. Then I start with a little bit of hot Dirty Bird. This is really foundational for my pulled pork. I think that the Dirty Bird and the hot Dirty Bird is the right combination. Probably should have put a better pan down here, making a mess, but that's okay. And then Dirty Bird, which is a little bit sweeter than the hot Dirty Bird, somewhat obviously by the name. I do think it's interesting. When I started watching videos, people were really, really careful with their seasonings. And as it's gone forward, I think people realize you need a little bit more of that flavor in there to get especially a big piece of meat like this where it needs to be. Now, there is no real presentation side to this, and the fat cap on this one was not a big deal because we're not trying to cook it the same way. So I'm gonna flip this guy over. Got some really nice intramuscular fat. You see it on the back of that. Look at that. It looks really, really good. And then we're just gonna go through the same process on the back, as I probably block my man Drew's camera with my hand. I'm not gonna score this fat. I'm not gonna take it off. I saw a gentleman who took this off, which seems like an unnecessary step. But I am gonna make sure that I get the sides. Otherwise, Bradley Robinson will come to my house and hit me with one of his many knives he shows us. So a little Killer Honeybee. Now this is an interesting experiment for me because the family really likes the pork that I make. So I'm taking a risk trying to go with a different approach. Hot Dirty Bird. But I think how bad can you really make pulled pork? It's really one of the best things you can start with. So if you're someone just starting out and you haven't done a lot of cooking, I think pulled pork is where you should really start, because even bad pulled pork is good. And it's usually better than the stuff you get at most restaurants in most towns. Now, notable exception, probably Texas, because Texas barbecue is fantastic. And the Carolinas. All of a sudden, all the St. Louis people and the Memphis people are cursing at me. Whatever. All right, so we got that seasoned up. We're gonna let it tack up a little bit. I'll get some of the extra seasoning onto the sides. We'll get it on here, and then we'll see you out at the cooker. We're out in the Meat Palace, and in Florida, if you're familiar with it, we have something called love bugs. These little fans, you may have wondered, they keep flies away really well. Love bugs are unimpressed by the technology. So we're doing our best. We've got our pork butt that's butterflied out. The rub has started to tack up. I had a little bit of a rub explosion. My cameraman's apparently deathly afraid of love bugs because he just did a karate move to get away from them. We'll leave that in the edit just so you see how scared of love bugs an 11-year-old can be. But at any rate, we're gonna get this guy in the cooker. An advantage to doing pork and chicken at the same time, and Myron does this in competition, is 275 is a great temperature. So we're gonna get this on and get it cooking. I anticipate 8 pounds. This is gonna take, because it's already butterflied, instead of taking 12 hours or whatever it would normally take, we're probably gonna be closer to 8, but we'll see how it works. For those of you eagle eyes, you'll see I moved my chicken up. While I don't have a problem necessarily with pork rendering down onto the chicken, it's probably not something everyone else wants. So we're gonna put this right on the grill, right on the grates, line up a drip pan. We're gonna let this guy go at 275 and start checking temps. We're gonna take a look at this super barky pork, see what we see. Burned my fingers on it last time, so I'll be smarter this time. Now I flipped it over, get some nice bark formation, which is just what we hoped. We've got a probe in there to track it. Let's see what we see with the Thermoworks. Matching about 153 over there, much softer over here, 168, 170. I was probing really nice and soft there. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this to go through the stall. I only have one hand because I don't have a cameraman right now. So what I'm gonna do is turn off the camera. I'm gonna pan it and I'll show you what I'm gonna do. Okay, we've got it in a pan. And this is what we were talking about earlier, where Joey Kim had his in chunks and then put in some additional leaf lard that he had rendered down. I'm gonna use some lard that I had rendered down, actually from bacon. It's almost like bacon up. To add a little bit of moisture in here. I'm going to wrap it to try and push through the stall and get us all the way there. But this bark has held up nice. We got plenty of it. The fat's rendered nicely on the, look at that. Oh my gosh. Flavor's good. Looking forward to what we're going to end up with. So I'm going to put a little bit of that sort of bacon fat in here with it just to give a little bit more moisture, and then seal it up with heavy duty aluminum foil and put it back in until we get to about 202. I'm going to now wrap this up with the aluminum foil, put it back in, keep it at 275, and take this all the way to the end. We are back outside. Reached about 199 degrees on the probe. And I just found out that the software on the probe, once you reach done, automatically sets the temperature down to 180, which is actually a really nice feature. I just didn't realize it before. I was actually perplexed by it. So let's see what we got. Oh boy. Smells delicious. I'm gonna burp this pan. Oh boy. Of course this thing, I need a two-sided temperature probe. 201, 204, 196, softer down there, 203. All right, we are good. We're gonna call this, we're gonna burp it. I'm gonna pull this probe out since it's of no use any longer, but I bet it's hot as hell. I'll do two hands with that. I'll get out here, let it get to normal temperature. I'm gonna rest this, and then I'm gonna pull it right in that pan, and we'll see what we ended up with. All right, we're back in the kitchen, and we've got our extra barky pulled pork. I'll let Drew, my cameraman, who's up on the ladder, get in there, get a little close. Looks good. Got plenty of juice in that pan. Took it to about 202 degrees across the different pieces, as you saw in the other video. Let it rest for about 45 minutes. It's down to about 165 degrees now, and I just don't want to wait anymore to pull it. So we're gonna see what we got in here, start tearing it apart. Actually, Drew, I want you to come across here and get in close as I'm pulling it. We got some nice jiggle, very soft. Very good render on the fat. You don't want it mushy, and it's not mushy. Nice shred. Well, I'm not really having to massage much to get in there. Let's see what this does. This side's a little tighter. I don't know if I like how loose that is. We may have to chop it. We'll see. Let's see here. Might should have let it rest a little longer. The color looks great. The smell is absolutely heavenly. And the bark is great, but that's really tight. Like that, you have to chop that up. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a moisture issue or not. I don't know. Let's get this incorporated. I will say that the intermuscular fat that was in there, normally you have a bunch of extra fat you kind of have to go through and pull out. There's some of that in there, but not much. Less than normal. It does shred nicely. This is what Joe Kim's did. And for pulled pork sandwiches, you don't want it to be mushy and squished, which is good. So the real test will be when we taste some of it. I want to give you guys a good look at some of the smoke ring though, right there. It's good looking pork. I just don't know if I'm going to like it as much as my normal pork. Got to get it reincorporated with some of this juice and then give it a taste. Let's see here. A little barky edge piece here. All right. Flavor is exceptionally good. It is, and maybe it's the bacon fat that I put in there. It's very moist. So even though it's tight, it's not it doesn't have a chew. Let's try this one. So that feels sort of tight. It's really good. We butterflied that boneless pork butt, seasoned it on both sides, took it to about 170 degrees where we hit our stall, panned it, and when we panned it, we put in some of my filtered bacon fat to give it a little bit more moisture. We got a great render on most of the fat. This is the first piece of fat I've actually found in here. All in all, I think my normal pulled pork is better than this, but if you're a bark person, if you really like those edge pieces, I think this could be a win. I'd be tempted to try Joe Kim's model where he breaks into smaller pieces rather than butterflying it. But hey, have you ever done this? Love to hear from you. If you like the video, please click like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff you're supposed to do, a little dance. Come back and see the other videos, and let me know what your thoughts are on pulled pork and if you have other ways to do it. As it turns out, the family and I ended up liking this pork better. My initial feeling was that my standard pork had better consistency, maybe texturally is different. But when we experienced it later, we made sandwiches out of it and just ate it, just as pulled pork. One of the things I end up doing, and I think a lot of people do, is after you do your pulled pork, you then do some more seasoning, and a lot of people will sauce their pork. You guys know from my videos, I don't like to sauce a lot of barbecue, but pulled pork is one of those things that sometimes you do. This pork, because it had so much more surface area for the seasoning and to get more smoke, and obviously the bacon fat doesn't make anything worse, generally speaking, and you could have certainly used the leaf lard that Joe Kim used, etc. There was so much flavor in this pork, you didn't have to add anything to it, and it holds up to reheating incredibly well. So it definitely has a little bit tighter texture. It would definitely hold up to a chop, which I'm not usually a chop guy. I'm going to chop cheap brisket if I'm making a lot of brisket for a kid's party or something. But flavor-wise, that extra bark, the extra seasoning that came in was absolutely worth the price of admission. And the family has requested that when I do pork, I generally do it this way moving forward. So I just want to make sure you guys knew that my initial instinct was to go with the tried and true, but in final review and family vote was unanimous. This will be how I do pulled pork moving forward. So thanks for watching the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you try it and if you had a good experience as well.